Okay, everybody. So I think we're ready to get started now. The time has come. So my name is Tal, and thank you so much for joining me today for Monday for Legal Teams webinar. This is actually the first time that we're holding such a webinar, law themed. So I really hope that you'd like it. I'm really anxious to hear what you have in mind and what question you'll have, and to hear your feedbacks afterward. So we'll get to that when we get to that. Let's see what's on the agenda today. So we're basically going to cover three main things. The first thing we're going to do is my ongoing legal tasks. We're going to create a board that tracks all the tasks you have to complete, and we'll adjust it to the specific requirements of legal teams or law firms. As you could see, I'll be referring mostly to lawyers working both on legal teams in a commercial company and in law firms. So we'll structure the board. We'll see how you can time track different tasks. We'll talk about collecting different tasks from whether it is employees within the company or clients using a form. And we'll also see how you can use this board to allow managers to oversee your workload. Then we'll talk about working on due diligence using Monday. Now, this is something that is also relatively new and can definitely use for inspiration. We'll start by importing an Excel sheet and turn it into a board. We'll structure that board. We'll see how you can share that board either with clients or with other legal teams. And at the same time, keep everything very obvious and everybody could see exactly what's the status of each task and every document in any given second. Then we'll talk about creating a legal dashboard. We'll be able to use the two first boards that we've created. We'll see how we can report using this dashboard and how you can monitor the number of billable hours you spend during a day or a week or a month, and making sure that you're not working too hard, if that's possible. And that's going to take approximately 30 minutes, maybe 35 minutes. Then we'll have a Q&A section that will take approximately 30 to 25 minutes. You can write your questions within the Q&A section or within the chat. I'll have a colleague of mine called Kassam. He'll join me, and we will together take your questions and try to answer as much as possible. I know that always the Q&A question is super important for you guys, so we'll definitely get to this part as well. So the first thing that I'd like to do today to get started is actually to visit our own website, but go to monday.com stories. For those of you who are not familiar with monday.com stories, this is a great way for you to see what other users of Monday have been doing using Monday, what boards have they created. And as you can see right here on the left, there are plenty of different categories. It can be project management, sales, roadmap, productivity. And this is always nice to see what other people are doing from the same industry. And that can definitely serve you for inspiration. But right now, what we're going to start doing is actually look for a specific board that I've created for the purpose of this webinar. That's called my legal, it's called onboarding, it's called, you'll see the name in a second. Here it says prioritize and track all legal tasks. First thing we're gonna do is click on that. The name is ongoing legal tasks, cool. And here you have a short description about the board, how I recommend getting started using it. We'll cover that in a few minutes. And what would happen if I didn't have this board. I created this board after working with different law firms and with different legal teams, helping them onboard into Monday. And we could definitely see a pattern, and a lot of them found this board very useful. So now I'm sharing this board with you. You can click expand here, and then you can see the board even before adding it to your account. But I'm actually going to go and add it to my account so we could review it in Monday like we're used to. I'm going to click on try it out. Okay, I'm going to minimize this section for now. So as you can see, we have just added my ongoing legal tasks board to my account. So what we have here, as you can see, this board is actually divided into different groups. We have a group which is request by form. We'll later talk about how to receive different questions and requests by form. We have corporate, we have litigation group, we have general and completed tasks. As you know, for those of you who are already familiar with Monday, everything is super customizable. I simply chose specific areas of practice, but this instead of corporate, that can be labor law. Instead of litigation, that can be IP, depending on what you do and the kind of tasks that you requested to do. Now let's see how this board is structured. So on the left, we have the name of the task. In this case, it's simply task 1 or task 2. Then we have 2 person columns. The first one is for the associate. Now, basically, in most cases, this will only be you because this board is meant to be used individually so that each team member will have his own ongoing legal tasks. You can, of course, add your own name so that it will be super clear that this board is actually your board and that you're the one who collects the tasks here. So we'll have the associate column for you. You can simply assign yourself like so. Sometimes you'll have more than one person working on a task, and this is a very nice way for you to be able to see in a glance who are you collaborating with when it comes to a specific task or a project. We then have another column. I called it partner, thinking of law firms, but it's very possible that you might want to change it to requester in case you're working with different people within your organization, within a commercial company, and they're the one who are coming up with questions or requests to you. So this, of course, can be changed in accordance to the person assigning you with the task. We then have a company column, which is simply a text column in which you can write down the name of the company in case you need to build them eventually. And we have the requester's email. This is mostly relevant for commercial companies. And you later see how this comes in handy when you are working with a form. We then have the status column. Now, as you can see, I've created different labels that are relevant for me. So of course we have done, working on it, stuck, which are the default. But I've also added, by the way, by clicking here on add/edit labels, these 5 different labels. So we have waiting for review, we have not yet started, we have missing documents, company to respond, and client to respond. Of course, you can customize it to fit the right labels for you. Then we also have a date column. And we've already created a deadline mode here. As you can see, these 2 columns are connected. So that if I choose a specific date for a task, and then I finish it by clicking on done, you can see that it automatically gets crossed out. Or if you're still working on it, you can see how many days are left. This will also come in handy later if you'd like to integrate it with my week, as it tracks all the different tasks that you have, which has your name as the assignee, and that has a date. Everything will be presented in my week. I will not go into this in the moment because this is not the reason why we came here today, but we'll talk about it a bit later. So we also have a priority column or urgency, depending on how you view it. You have a time estimation, so you can put in for yourself how much time do you estimate a specific task will take, or if it's somebody else that has given you this task, maybe the partner in charge, he can also estimate how much time he thinks it's going to take. Right next to the time estimation, we have a time tracking column. For those of you who are not familiar with it, this is a great way for you to log the specific time that you're working on a task or for a specific company. Every time you stop the timer from running, it actually logs in the session, so that if I continue working on that case, then I stop. At any given moment, you have a nice view of the time you spent working on that case. You can also export it to Excel, and you can later do anything you need to do with this data. The last column that we've added here is the creation log column. This is just an automatic and easy way for you to log the specific date on which a task has entered your schedule. For example, if I had another task, let's add it here. As you can see, it automatically takes the date of to date, and it can also tell you the exact time on which you started working on this task or added it to your board. Now, Let's say that you would like to take requests or questions either from people within your law firm that perhaps are not using Monday, or from clients of yours that constantly come up with different questions regarding different topics, and you'd like to make this process a bit more efficient. For that, we've created the form view. Let me show you how it is done. In order to add a form to your board, you simply click here on Add View, and then you simply choose Form, like so. You can see that it was added right here. I'm going to click on that, and then I get to customize the question, the language, and the look of the form. So let's start by adding a logo. Maybe change the color of the form. Very nice. Now, as you can see, the default is that each column will have a corresponding question on the form. Let's change the language so that people who are viewing this form will be able to know exactly what is expected of them when they're populating these fields. So instead of name, I'm going to ask them what can I help you with today? And I'm going to add a description saying, please be as specific as you can. You can also choose whether you'd like to show this question or to hide it or to make it a required question, like so. I will make this question required because it's important for me to collect as much information before I go and start working on a task. Company. So what's the name of your company? Let's make it required. What is your email address? As well required because I want to be able to connect the task to a specific person. The status is for me, so I'm not going to show it on the board currently. The date, I find it important. And let's ask the user, until when can we work on that? If you'd like, you can also show them the urgency so they could fill out how important and how urgent this task is. Time estimation is also internal, so I'm not going to show it on the board. And I think that pretty much seems right. Now, let me show you how it's done and how the flow works. So I'm going to go and click on Preview. And this is a form that you can send out to your clients or to people from inside your organization. Now let's populate, let's fill out this form so you can see how the flow actually works. So what can you help me with today? What can I help you with today? So let's say that my legal question is, am I allowed to employ an intern on the weekend? What's the name of your company? Monday. What's your email address? That's my email address. Until when can we work on that? Let's say that it's quite urgent, so until tomorrow. And let's put urgency to 5 stars and submit. Wonderful. So I get this feedback, thank you, and I can close this window. And once I go back to my board, as you can see, I already received this request directly to the request by form group. So as you can see, am I allowed to employ an intern on the weekend? This is my question, and here I have all the information that I filled out. I can then, of course, research this question. I can ask other people. I can communicate with other people using the update section. You can basically do whatever you'd like to do with this specific item, with this specific task, change the status accordingly, move it to the relevant group. If this is a question that deals with labor law, you might want to consider moving it to the labor law group, like so. I hope that was clear. I know I'm working pretty fast. Since this is not a basic webinar, I'm relatively going fast over the how to do things, mostly focusing on the flow itself. But this webinar is recorded, so you can definitely reach out to us afterward, and we'll be happy to send you a link if you'd like to view it again. I would like to show you another cool thing that can maybe optimize this board a bit further. Let's say that once I change the status of a task from not yet started to done, I'd like it to automatically jump into the completed task group. Now, I can do that using what is called automation. Let me show you how it's done. So the automations center is actually here by clicking on automations. Then I'm going to go and change and choose status change because this is the relevant category for me. And actually the first recipe that I see here is the relevant one. I'm going to click on it. So when a status changes to something, move item to group. Let me show you how we're going to go and set this up. So I'm going to click on the grade text. And I'm going to choose the relevant column. In this board, I only have one status column. I'm going to go and pick this one. So when a status changes to done, because this is what is going to trigger all this automation, please move the item to, I'm going to go and choose the relevant group, which is the completed task group. When I'm done, I'm going to simply click on add to board like so. And you can see that it is now working and turned on. You can, of course, turn it off, edit it, or send it to the trash can. So we now have it active in this board. So let's say that I've been working on this task. I had people assigned, people reviewing my work, the company and everything. And then I finished. So I'm going to change it to done. And as you can see, it automatically jumped to the completed task section, like so. So this is a very, very easy thing that you can add to your board in order to make your flow a bit easier or a bit simpler in a way. So I hope this was helpful so far. We will soon see how we're going to use this ongoing legal tasks board within a legal dashboard that we'll create very, very soon. The next thing that I'd like to show you is how to manage a due diligence process using a unique board that we're going to build out together. I'm actually going to start by importing an Excel document into Monday. In order to do this, I'm going to click here on the avatar button, and then I'm going to click on import data. As you can see, we currently allow 4 different platforms to import from. I'm going to go and click on Excel because that's the relevant one for me. And I'm going to click to browse. I'm not sure that you can see this screen, but I'm simply choosing the relevant Excel file. And I will click on Let's Customize Your New Board. I will soon talk about the content itself. Right now, I'm just talking about the logistics of how to import it. So as you can see, we have the first row. I'm going to click Next. It's asking me, what's your first column? That is the first column. I'm going to click again, Next. And then it asks me, regarding this specific column, what sort of column will it be when you import it to Monday? And it can be a text column, like it was when it was in Excel, but I'm actually going to go ahead and choose status column. You'll later see how this is helpful for me. And then create board. Beautiful. So what we see here is that it automatically took the name of the Excel document that I had, and it automatically transferred all of the names of the different files that I had in Excel alongside the division that is relevant for them. For example, certificate of incorporation, limited liability agreement, these can all be relevant for legal. We have contracts relevant for operations. We have HR documents, finance, even IP. As you can see, this is relatively short, but as you know, this can be a very, very long list of documents, and this can be working just the same with a very long list of documents. Now, this has happened automatically, and that's good because we'll later be able to filter out in accordance to any column that will structure into this board. But now let's start by constructing this board a bit further so I could use it even more comfortably as we go on. So the first thing that I'm going to add is 2 people column. I'm going to do that like that. The first people column will be for an associate, or more than one, because sometimes some documents can be sensitive or very long and maybe more than one lawyer or associate will be reviewing them. The second column will be called, I'm going to call it a partner, but it can be reviewer or anybody else who is going to do an extra action on this specific document. I'm going to change it like so. I'm going to drag and drop it to here. Okay. Now I'm going to add 2 more status columns. The first one will simply be status. Let's change the labels so they will be relevant for this board. So we're going to have to be reviewed. We're going to have reviewed. Let's change this color to red. And this will be stuck. Pretty basic. So we'll have reviewed, stuck, working on it, and to be reviewed. Apply. I'm going to add an additional status column, which will be used. I'm going to repurpose it and call it follow-up / action item. As you know, some documents require some extra assistance from different lawyers in a specific area of expertise. And this is how you can control and oversee what has been going to whom. So I'm going to, again, change the labels to fit my needs. So I'm going to have yes or no. I'm going to say no, which is the best thing when you're reviewing a document, not finding any red flags or action items. We're going to have cleanup. Instead of stuck, I'm going to call it red flag. We'll have follow-up and also send to IP, send to labor, and send to tax. These are all different divisions within a law firm that might be also getting into the process of the due diligence or the DD. Now let's continue building this board. I'm going to do it quite quickly. Let's add a text column, but not text, but a long text column. This is where you're going to put your impression of the document or question that you've collected while working on it. I'm going to put it right over here. If you'd like, you can add a file column. This can be super easy, since then you can simply invite people from either your law firm or your company, and only by being subscribed to this board, they'll be able to view all the relevant files, and they won't have to get credentials to enter the VDR or anything like that. That just makes life easier. It's up to you whether you'd like to do that as well. I'm also going to add a last updated column. I'm simply looking for last updated, and here it is. This is a column that I personally really like because it gives you a great impression of what is going on this board, who has been working on it, when, who's this person. So this can all be achieved by simply structuring the board properly, like so. Another thing I'm going to do is change the names. Let's call this one to be reviewed, because I have yet to review them. Let's change the color because green is usually associated, at least in my mind, with things that I've completed. And I'm going to go and add another group. It can be reviewed items. It can be cleanup, different questions that were collected during the DD process. Whether you're adding more items to review as you go and you'd like to separate them with different dates, this can also be used this way. I'm just going to go and drag it to the bottom because this is not relevant for me at the moment. Now, once we have structured the board, you can, of course, work on it yourself if you'd like. You can simply assign yourself or somebody assign you. You can use batch actions like so. I'm clicking on Shift right now, clicking on another cell here. Then I can simply assign, it can be myself or somebody else, to all of the items at once. And of course, as I go, I can go ahead and change the status to the relevant one, if I find red flags, etc. Now, what I would like to show you that takes it to the next stage perhaps is the ability to share this board with others. Now, when you share it, you can share it with the other legal team, so you'll get your questions answered immediately, or you may want to share it with your clients to enable them to be a part of the process of the DD, if they'd like to. Now, let me show you how it's done. So currently, this is a main board. If you remember, main board is the default type of board that we offer on Monday, and that is a board that is viewable to basically everybody in your account. If you turn it into a shareable board, only people that were invited or subscribed to this board using this part, I will show you in a second, will be able to view it and to interact with it. So let's do that. Let's make it a shareable board. I'm simply clicking on the three dots menu. I'm clicking on change board type and then change to shareable. Once I do that, the board has become shareable. I can click here and I can add other team members. Maybe Naomi. Sorry, yes, you can see I've added her. Or invite different guests, like Shelly, which will now be a guest in my account and will only be able to view this specific board. If I'd like, I can invite the lawyers from the other team to view this board as well. For example, let's say that I'm working on a specific document and I have a question regarding it, or I collected a few questions. I can simply mention the name of the lawyer on the other legal team and ask her directly what I want, instead of collecting all of my questions within the team and then passing it in one email to the other side, and then waiting a few days for them to answer, and then writing up my own follow-up questions. So instead of all of this, I'm simply going to do this. In section 3.1, it says, so what does that mean? That mean, or how can, whatever your question is, to the other side. And as soon as you click on update, Shelly will be notified. She can go over the document, she can see what section 3.1 says, and then simply answer back. I will be notified when she answers, and as you can see, that makes the whole process so much easier. You can also make the update section into a place you put your guidelines when making the DD. So if there's a partner in charge of this transaction, he can mention the name of the lawyers working on it and simply letting them know what are they to emphasize when they're working on that. Now, and another thing that you could do is afterwards export to Excel this update section, including all the different questions. So you can definitely see how this makes your life so much easier. Now, this is, of course, very general, and each team works differently on during the DD process, but this can be used for inspiration, and you can adjust it to match the way that suits you the best. The last thing I'd like to show you is how to create a legal dashboard using the two boards that we've created. So I'm going to go and click on dashboards. I've already gone ahead and created a shield or a structure for this legal dashboard. So I have time tracking widget, I have progress widget, I have quote of the day widget, I have table widget, calendar widget, chart widget, and of course the llama farm, which we'll get to soon. Now let's start by actually setting this up so I'll see all the information that I need in one glance. So I'm going to go and choose the relevant board for me to see where my time tracking is handled. So I'm going to go and choose ongoing legal tasks tile. If you remember, that's the one we've downloaded from Monday Stories. I'm going to click done. By the way, feel free to ask your question. My friend Kassam is now joining me and he's answering within the chat section. So, and we'll also answer after that. So feel free to let us know what you have in mind. As you can see, it automatically took the time tracking that we had on that board. Let me show you how it's done. So that if, for example, I'm now working on task 1 and the timer is running, and I go back to my legal dashboard, this will eventually show up here. I'm not sure why it doesn't show at this second. Let me make sure. Okay, so I'm sorry for that. I'm not sure why it's not running. Usually it does. And what's interesting is that you can also set a threshold so that if you're billing more than 10 hours a day, for example, or more than 10 hours a week, whatever you'd like to set it up with, you can simply color it red. And then these numbers will be appearing in red. You can view the time tracking for a day, or for weeks, or for months, or even years if you'd like. Now let's set the progress bar. Now what I'd like to see is the progress of my DD process. So I'm going to go and choose that specific board, which is this board. As you can see, there's this sign mentioning that this is a shareable board. Right now, it's only 3.9% done. But if I go back and change the status to reviewed, and then change it some more, so we'll have a good impression of how it works, to stuck. And then going back to the dashboard, you can see how it changes, and it gives me a very good understanding of the progress of the DD progress, or the DD process, sorry. Now here I'm going to use the table widget to reflect my onboarding legal tasks. Again, going to choose this board, ongoing legal tasks. I'm going to click on done. So now I'm like collecting all of the information about the different tasks that I have to complete within one central location. So as you can see, this is the exact same board, only it is presented here. I can work on it, I can change statuses to done, or communicate with other team members through here. Here, I'd like to collect important dates for me. It's important before you add a widget that you actually have different dates set up on your ongoing tasks, so that if you set them out here, you'll be able to view them, of course, in your calendar. And the last thing that I want to show you here is actually very interesting, because this is something that a lot of times is very relevant when you see law firms or even other places that want to have a good understanding of who is keeping their employee busy. So what I'm going to show here within this chart is like so. So first of all, I'm going to add the relevant board, which is ongoing legal tasks. The default is that it will show the status. So we have waiting for review, stuck. This just takes into consideration the statuses that I've mentioned on this board. But I would actually like to show something else. Before I do, I'm going to change the names of the partners. So I'm going to add these assignments that were received from Naomi. Let's say that these two were received from Ron. And I'm also going to go and add time estimation to these tasks. So let's say that this takes 10 hours and this takes 4.5. Now I'm going to go and change the settings so that instead of showing me statuses, excuse me, it will show me people column and specifically partners. Good. So another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to allow it to be weighted according to the time estimation. As you see, it actually did that by default. So now when I'm looking at this very simple chart, I can see that Ron has assigned me with 14 hours of work, and Naomi has assigned me with 4.5 hours of work. I will later show you how this can be relevant to your manager or for other team members as well. Now, the last thing that I'm going to show you is, of course, the llama farm. I'm going to go and choose the relevant board, which is the board that we've been using so far. I'm going to click on Done. Give it a second. And as you can see, we have different llamas here, each one representing another task, a different task on my board. This is request from Pamela. This is task 1. It is presented in green because I've already completed this, and so on. Now you can share this great legal dashboard with the other team members or with your manager. So it's very easy to do by clicking here, then choosing the names. Would you like to share this board with, this dashboard with? At the moment, I'm sharing it with Naomi and Ron. I can also make them board owners so they could make changes to this board. And as you can see, I have all the information needed in one place, so easy. And as you saw, it took us only a few minutes to set up. So this was it for the structuring part of this webinar.